Yay! Hello, everybody. Today we are going to do a Procreate Dreams crash course. We're going to go through an animated project. I am Addie. I'm here with the lovely Abbie from Uproot Brushes.
Hello.
And if you are following along, you'll want to be sure to download the project file. That's a Procreate document, not a Procreate Dreams document. So I have the Dropbox folder pinned in the chat. It's also in the video description for anybody that's watching on replay. And there's 3 files in there. It's a Procreate document that you'll want to download, color palette, which is optional. You can follow that or pick your own colors, and then a Procreate Dreams file if you want to see the finished file for reference, but it's kind of a big file, so that's optional. And if you are following along in just Procreate, I'll throw some advice out there for how to get some of the same effects, but we're mostly going to be sticking in Procreate Dreams to go through the interface, how it works, all of the hidden menus, and some tips and tricks. So I think we might go a little long. I'll try to get everything as fast as possible. The nice thing about YouTube is that you can, while we're live still, you can go back and replay anything that you've missed and then catch up. You can pause, you can slow down the playback speed, so we'll try to keep it. I think like 90 minutes is probably what it's going to take, but we'll see. Let's get into it. I'm going to share my screen, and we're going to start in Procreate Dreams. When you open Dreams,
hang on.
Oh,
wait,
am I too fast?
Yes, okay.
So when you open Dreams, if you've not used it before, you'll probably have some sample artworks in here. And then in Dreams, which is different than Procreate, you have a couple different places to save things. You can save things locally on your iPad, and you can also save them on your iCloud Drive if you have iCloud storage.
That is really, really nice.
It is nice.
I wish they would have that in Procreate.
I think that they are implementing that in the upcoming update, which will be amazing for backups. I think that's
Yeah. Because I think the scariest thing about Procreate is if you delete the app, you're absolutely buggered.
Yes, 100%. And also, like, sometimes it just will disappear with updates.
Yeah. Anyway, sorry I'm interrupting you.
No, that's okay. So this is called the theater. I might refer to it as the gallery because that's what I'm used to. I'm still getting used to the Procreate Dreams lingo. To open a new file in Dreams, sorry, I have a cat that's trying to walk across my computer. Just like in Procreate, you'll tap the plus sign in the upper right-hand side. And to navigate to different sizes, you can scroll up and down. And so they have just preset ones here. We're going to use the square option. Yours might look a little different. I think it'll automatically set you at 4K. To change the resolution, you can tap that 2K, 4K, whatever it says there next to the square, and choose from here. We're going to use the 2K resolution, which will match up with the Procreate project file.
What did the little dots in the top corner do?
The dots in the top corner will allow you to adjust the length of your project and the frames per second. So for this particular project, we're going to do 12 frames per second. You can also set a custom one here, but we're going to do 12. And then for the duration, we'll do 6 seconds. It sometimes doesn't save your choice of seconds if you just tap the number. So to make sure that it remembers what you're choosing, you could tap the backspace and then choose the selection, and it should save that. And then from here, you have the option to click draw or empty, and this will just indicate whether it automatically sets up a track for you in the document. So we're actually going to tap draw to get that preset track, and then it will take you into the project, and it also automatically starts.
I didn't select draw, so is there a way to make a track?
Absolutely. So if you didn't select draw, I'll just delete this and show you what that looks like. So if you didn't select draw, this is what it will come in as, just nothing down here in the lower section of the screen is called the timeline. So nothing in the timeline. To add, you're just going to tap the plus sign, and then you can tap track, and that will bring in an empty track. And then you can add a frame by zooming in and going to drawing mode, and there will be a plus sign there. And then you can adjust the length.
Sorry.
Yeah.
Okay. And does it have to be white in the background like that?
It does not have to be white. So the little squiggle here in the right side means that you're in drawing mode, and that's what we will be hopping in and out of the most. And so when you're out of drawing mode, it has the normal dark gray background, but in drawing mode, it brings you into this bright white background. To change that, you're going to tap the time code on the left side and tap background color, and then select transparent. And then it's a little less glaring.
That's better for your eyes.
And while we're in here, we're going to tap hide onion skin because we're not going to be doing... Oh, you went to a commercial. Oh no, I am so sorry. Let me turn off. I did not know it would do that midstream. That must be a new feature. Give me one moment and I will change that because I don't want that. And you're probably not able to hear this if you're in a commercial. Okay, I've just turned it off. Maybe refresh. I'm gonna type that in the cat. Okay, it sounds like you guys are back. I'm so sorry. I did not know that it would insert ads in the middle of the stream. I thought it would just be afterward. So I've turned that off. If you have another commercial come on, refresh the page, or maybe just refresh the page just in case. And let's see. Joan says, I didn't know this was about dreams. Will it be recorded so I can download dreams and do another time? Yes, absolutely. So this will be saved at the same link. It'll live on my YouTube channel under the live stream button on my channel. And yes, you can watch it at any time. Okay, so let's see, it stopped when I explained the drawing button info. Okay, so did you get the track? I'll just go over adding a track again. To add a track, you press the plus sign and then tap track, and then you're going to want to make sure that you're in drawing mode and zoom in. And you should get this little white square that appears and be able to tap the plus sign. And then you can drag this around. You can adjust the length with a finger. Okay, so then, let's see. I'll go back in and show you. So in drawing mode, you'll see it has this bright white background. To turn that off, you're going to tap the time code and then tap background color and select transparent, and then it'll be this dark gray background. And also under time code, if it says hide onion skin, you're going to want to tap that to turn off onion skinning. Because we're not going to be doing frame by frame animation, you'll want to have that off because it'll just look confusing and weird. The amount of times that I've been mid-project and not realized that that was on, it makes your colors look a little different because it's like transparently layering other like multiples. Okay, so...
Addie,
yes.
Please can you tell everybody about the gestures to make the track zoom in and out?
Yes.
Because I was going like a frenzied monkey on my screen trying to get it to zoom in and out, and then you showed me how to do it, and it was so easy.
Yes, thank you for mentioning that. To navigate this timeline section, to move around just normally, you can use one or two fingers and it moves as expected. But to zoom in and out, you're going to swipe 3 fingers flat across the screen. So
Yeah,
side to side.
like
Will it
this. What I was doing this like some kind of crazy person,
like
but it's
triple bunny ears?
actually like this.
Yes. So side to side will change the length of how much is visible on your screen of the timeline. And then up and down will change the height of the tracks. And it can be a bit finicky to navigate. So if, I meant to say this at the top, it's hard to talk about dreams without having some caveats because there are things that are missing that are hopefully coming in future updates. There are things that are drastically different from Procreate in the like drawing area. And so there's things that I'll reference as workarounds, but hopefully I have faith that there will be an update in the future that solves some of these issues. Okay, so in the drawing area, which is the upper portion of the screen, you'll see it looks a lot like Procreate. You have brushes, the smudge tool, the eraser, and then you can have drawing layers, and also your color picker. And just like in Procreate, you have the opacity slider and the brush size. But you'll notice there's no transform or selection. And so because it doesn't have those tools in the drawing area, when you're setting up your projects, I think it's helpful to know what you need to do in Procreate versus in Procreate Dreams. So you can move things around, but not in your individual drawing, and you can't use a selection or a lasso to choose certain parts of it.
I hope they bring that, but that is a big hurdle.
Yes, it is the I think it's like the most requested update, and they have promised. So supposedly this year we're getting an update, hopefully in the first part of the year. We'll see. So that's drawing mode. You might have seen me switch to the flip book. If you pull this tab in the center, like middle of the screen above the timeline, this little gray line, you can pull that down and it'll give you more drawing space. And then it also has this flip book. The flip book is more functional for frame by frame animation, so we're not really going to use it. So when you enter this, you can just drag it off to a part of the screen that it's not going to interfere or bother you. And then to go back, you can either hit done in the upper right hand corner or tap the X and it'll bring you back to your timeline. But you'll still be in drawing mode, so to exit drawing mode, you'll just tap the squiggle again, and then you're in the timeline mode. These buttons, the other buttons here, this is the timeline edit button. This allows you to select multiple tracks or multiple pieces of content at once. So right now I'm in content mode. You can tap content here and switch to tracks, and then I can select multiple tracks at once. This is really useful if you are grouping things or if you are like moving multiple items around or deleting multiple things at once. This is a record button, which I'll show you later on how to use that. And then the play will just play whatever content is on your screen. Pretty self-explanatory. To get back to the gallery, this collection of squares next to where it says Dream 1, that button will take you back there. The Dream 1 button is a hidden way to get to the settings. And so I wanted to go through a few things in the settings before we get into the actual project. If you ever want to adjust your size of your canvas, the duration, or the frames per second, this is how you'll do that. And then in the timeline section here, we're going to turn off the add keyframe at the start, and then in playback mode, we're going to set this to loop. And under preferences, make sure that you have undo and redo buttons and gestures turned on. I know for Abbie this was off.
Yeah.
And so I'm not sure if that's like, that might be the way that it automatically defaults.
No, I think it might have been because my youngest son has been using Procreate Dreams and did a whole lot of weird stuff, but that's totally fine.
Kudos to him if he's not using undo. I could never. Okay, so then under history, I wanted to touch on how undo works and undo history works in Dreams. This is very different from Procreate. Procreate, once you exit the document, your undo history is gone. It's locked in. But Dreams will save your entire undo history from the very start of the canvas creation. The plus side is that you can access any part of your project in the time that was made. The downside is that the file gets really, really huge with all of those saved undo steps. And so to kind of mitigate the file size issue, you can limit the total number of undo steps. And I should clarify that undo steps aren't necessarily individual actions in Dreams. So it's not every brush stroke that you make. It is for like the first several or most recent actions, but then the further back in time you get, the more progressively they're grouped. And so it'll be like 5 actions at once grouped into one undo step. So for me, that was really frustrating when I first started using Dreams, and they've since like tweaked it a little bit, and now you can have a percentage of your recent undo steps available. I set mine at 100. I never really need to go like super far back in my project. I maybe go back like a dozen steps at most. And so I save 100 undo steps, and it distributes my most recent steps as individuals, and then the further back it'll distribute and group those. And then like the more actions that I take in the canvas, the larger those further back groups will be. So if you think of it as in like a timeline, these ones are all like individual steps, and then these ones are the grouped ones together. So depending on your device capabilities and your project, you might want to play around with this and find what works for you. For me, I find either 100 or 250 total undo steps, and then saving 100% of my recent undo steps has been a really good middle ground for me.
But you made a good point when we spoke the other day. You said that because you're so used to the fact that if you close Procreate, your undos are terminated, you're used to the fact that undos only go to a certain point. So that actually, I mean, it's helpful, because when have we ever had a program that we can undo into infinity?
Exactly.
So yeah, I agree. 100 is enough.
Yeah. The other thing that they've implemented are recovery points. And anytime, I think it's when you undo 3 times in a row and take a new action, it will save the project from where, like right before you started undoing.
Yeah.
And it'll save up to 3 of those. So if, for example, you accidentally undo and then you touch the screen and it makes a brush stroke, you can't then redo, but you can recover the file through these recovery points. Okay, so I think that's everything for the basic Dreams interface. And so we're going to jump into the project. If you have the file downloaded, you'll want to import it into Procreate. We're going to use Procreate in side-by-side mode. You can do side-by-side mode in 2 different ways. You can tap the screen at the center top to access these 3 dots, and then tap split view and select the app that you want to pull up. Or, this is my preferred way, I swipe up from the bottom to bring up my taskbar, and then I can drag and drop Procreate next to
I love your
Dreams.
app icons that you make. It's so nice.
Very aesthetically pleasing. And the first thing that we're going to do is import the document. So you'll want to be inside your project in Dreams and then in your gallery in Procreate. And then you can just drag and drop. And you'll see the plus sign appear and it will import.
So this is to import all of the layers at once. Is there any way to import one layer at a time?
So not to import a layer at a time. No, you can only import full files.
Okay, so you can only import the entire Procreate file, yoink, one time.
Yes.
Okay.
And so let's jump into the Procreate file. You can import it multiple times.
Okay.
You can also duplicate the project once you've imported it. But this is where you want to figure out how the file is set up to just make it as simple as possible. Yeah. So all of these, if I open the layers panel, they're all flattened separate layers. I don't have groups. I don't have clipping masks. That is not always the case. But I'll show you how to translate this, because as you can see, there's 6 layers here in the Procreate file, and then over in Dreams, it's just imported as one track. And so right now it's interpreting this just as one track with all of the layers here in the drawing area. So we can change that by pressing and holding on the Procreate Dreams track side, and then selecting Convert Layers to Tracks, and it will group it. But if I expand the group by tapping on that little arrow, they're now all on separate tracks. And if I press and hold once more on the group to bring up this menu, I can tap Ungroup, and they're all then free and separate. Before we close Procreate, we're going to want to bring our brushes and color palette over. And
so do that again.
Do the...
Yes, I missed
that. Okay, so we've just dragged our project into Procreate Dreams. I'll make it a little bigger here. And there's another hidden menu. By pressing and holding on the track, you can bring up this menu. And we're going to tap Convert Layers to Tracks. That's right in the middle. And this will bring all of the layers in as individual tracks. Let me show you what this looks like, though, why I have them all flattened here for ease of use. This is not something you need to follow along with. If I import, let's see, something with groups. Let me see if this is groups. Okay. If I were to import something with groups and clipping masks, it's going to take a little while to bring that in. So it's still going to bring it in as the one track. And you can see all of the groups and clipping masks translate here, as you'd expect. But then when I convert the layers to tracks, every single group and clipping mask is its own track. So even every single thing is its own drawing layer, and there's no way to go back. I think that's the key thing that I was missing. There's no way to convert tracks to layers. So it's like a one-time option. And so if you had wanted some things to stay as drawing layers in clipping masks and their tracks, you'd have to re-import the file and then delete everything you didn't want.
Yeah.
And so for this demonstration's purposes, I see Sheila says drag and drop what? I selected all layers and it only brings over one. So the thing that you'll want to do when it brings over just the one layer is press and hold on the track and then tap Convert Layers to Tracks. It will be right here where the Ungroup button is. And then it will be the multiple tracks. And then we're going to tap Ungroup. Oops. You're going to want to make sure that you're tapping on the group track to access that Ungroup button. And then I had closed Procreate, but we're going to want to leave that open in side-by-side mode so that we can bring in our brushes and the color palette. Just like with the document, you can drag and drop. Oh, I don't know if that worked. You can drag and drop the brushes and the color palette in. And then everything will be ready for you to go. The color palettes come in at the bottom, and there's no way to sort your color palettes at this time.
Hooray!
Okay. Sheila, make sure when you are importing from Procreate that you're in the gallery.
Yeah.
That's how you get the whole project. So if you do that, it should carry over all of the drawing layers. It'll look like one track on until you convert the layers to tracks. Okay. Let me make sure I haven't missed any questions here. Yes, the resizing of the tracks here that I do is really just resizing the view. And so it's 3 fingers up and down to adjust the height and 3 fingers side to side, just swiping.
Like this.
What was it?
Like this, not like this. This is no action requires that.
And
Just
Sheila made
like this.
yeah. Sheila made a good point. You can also just click the plus sign and add a file. That's a wonderful alternative. Okay, so make sure that you ungroup your layers because we're going to apply some different animations to different layers. Let's see, right now I'm just going to delete my extra drawing track here. Okay, so it should have imported either above or below your existing track that you had. On our existing track, we're going to first tap the frame to access the menu, and then we're going to tap fill duration here. It's the third from the bottom, and this will extend the frame all the way through the timeline. It looks like when I imported my tracks weren't all the full 6-second length here. So to change that, I'm just individually dragging the length. You can see the little like pink line appears on the end. And that's how you adjust the length of the tracks.
So what are we going to draw in this drawing track?
Okay, so we're going to draw a moon on this first drawing track. But first, we're going to sandwich it in between the sky background layer and the branches layer. So press and hold to grab the track, and then you can see the dashed line appears showing you where you're going to drop it, and it'll automatically create a new track for that content. And it does leave an empty track behind, which you can just delete. We'll make several empty tracks in this project. And so let's see, let's get our rest of our empty tracks set up before we start drawing. So I find that the easiest way is to press and hold to bring up the menu and then tap duplicate. And if you use 3 fingers, just swipe horizontally. You'll be able to see it. It'll put it right next to outside of their active timeline. And then you can just grab it and drag it, and we'll drop that. And it'll automatically create that new track for it. And we're going to do that once more so that we have 3 empty drawing tracks. And to rename it, you can press and hold to bring up the menu. And this first one is going to be the moon. Actually, the first one is going to be the clouds. And then we'll do the moon on the second one. And the third one will be stars. Okay. So now we can jump into drawing. So on the moon layer, it doesn't matter where, I don't think I talked about this. This is your playhead. And this, right now, it has the slate icon on it, or the clapper. I had to Google what it was called, and they made it very clear that in movies, they only refer to it as the slate. It felt very pretentious. So this is your playhead button. For the drawing portion, it doesn't matter where your playhead is because we're just going to draw this on one track. If you're not seeing the option to rename the track, make sure that you're pressing and holding on the track to bring up the menu, and it should just be underneath the copy, cut, and duplicate buttons, the first option at the top. But it's okay if you don't rename them. I'm just doing it to help you follow along, but you'll want to do it on the middle of the tracks. If you aren't seeing where it's duplicating, you can also add new tracks by just tapping and add a track, and then you'll want to zoom in and make sure that you're in drawing mode and add an empty drawing layer. I just find that the duplicating of the tracks is a little faster. So we're already in drawing mode. I'm going to move my timeline out of the way into the flipbook mode to expand my drawing area. And we're going to draw our little moon here. So in my color palette, I'm going to select this light yellow. You can also pop out your color palette. Oh, that's a little different though. That's maybe a little wonky. There we go. So we're on this light yellow, and for the brush, we're using, oh, I didn't say this at the top, we're using Abbie's nostalgic illustration brushes. I have those linked in the description as well, and you can take 10% off with my affiliate link using code Woolly10 at checkout. You can also follow along with any other brushes that you have. You'll just need like a paintbrush and a pencil and a smudger. For the moon, I'm going to use the gouache brush, the flat gouache wide brush. And we're going to draw our moon just here in the upper left pane of the window. And you'll notice that, again, there are some things that are different in Dreams than in Procreate. There's no quick shape snapping, so you can't make like the perfect circles and lines that you can in Procreate, but that's okay. We're just going to draw a wonky little moon.
It is amazing how used to things you get, and then like draw the circle and just wait for a second, even though your brain is going, it's not going to make the circle.
Yeah. Same thing with the 2-finger tap to undo.
Yeah.
Like I will write things down on paper and then automatically do the 2-finger tap.
The other day I tried to zoom in on the LD brochure. No. I was like, I really need to see that special offer in high resolution.
Yes. Okay, so now we've drawn our moon, nothing fancy. You can either hit done here in the upper right or tap the X on flipbook. And we're going to add our animation to the moon. If you aren't 100% in love with the placement of where your moon is, once you exit the drawing mode, so that means the squiggle is not highlighted, you can just drag outside of your moon shape and adjust the placement. And here also you can drag the little pink nodes and resize. However, it resizes, you'll see it's a little different than in Procreate. It resizes from that center plus icon rather than in the direction that you're pulling the node. And that
it
plus
also seems to be very annoyingly tricky. Like accidentally you could warp things, and I don't know. It
yeah,
feels a bit bothersome.
yeah, because you can flip them if you drag too far, which I think that this is pretty standard for motion graphic software. I know After Effects works the same way. It doesn't make it less annoying when it happens. But it is apparently some kind of standard. But that plus sign in the middle is called the anchor point, and we're going to move that. So that is not only where it resizes from, but if we were to rotate it, it rotates directly around that center point.
And the rotate grab handle is that little smile that happens if you touch the corner.
Yes, if you tap directly on the node with the bounding blocks visible, it'll appear. And then you just grab that smiley and drag. The 3 dots here will give you a few more options. You can flip it horizontally and vertically, and you can also edit the anchor, which is what we're going to do. So if you tap the 3 dots to access this menu, and then tap Edit Anchor, it allows you to drag your anchor point. And we are going to drag this down to the center, right below the canvas, and then tap Done in the upper right-hand corner. And now, if we grab the rotation handle, you can see it rotates from the bottom there and gives us a much wider arc.
Ooh.
And so now we can set up the keyframe, and this will be the animation. So we're going to zoom out a little bit on our timeline using that 3 fingers swiping horizontally. And we're going to drag our playhead to the 2-second point, and make sure, you can zoom in after you've dragged it, make sure that your playhead is on the moon layer and not other layers. It's very easy to just pull it around. And so you'll want to actively make sure that you're on that layer. And once again, we're going to zoom way in. And then if you tap the playhead, it gives you some actions that you can do. We're going to tap Move and then Move and Scale. And you can see it creates this small track down here with this little keyframe icon. And if you went into settings and turned off keyframe, add keyframe at the beginning, like we did at the beginning of the live, there will be nothing else here. If you didn't, that's okay. You can just press and hold to bring up an option to delete that extra keyframe. So we want just one keyframe at the 2-second point. And that's because this is, we're going to have the moon rise and then pause for a couple seconds in the middle of the timeline, and then it'll set at the end. So at 2 seconds, we have it here, and it's going to, oh, I don't want to move that. I'm going to drag my playhead over to 4 seconds. And once again, I'm going to make sure that I'm staying on my mini keyframe track when I'm dragging my keyframe, or my playhead. Again, easy to just come up here, and then you don't have the option to press the keyframe again. So we're at 4 seconds. I'm on the keyframe track, and I'm going to tap that, and it goes from like low opacity to fully opaque white, and that means that I've added that keyframe there. So it hasn't moved yet. This is just our portion of the project where it's staying in the same place. Then I'm going to use 3 fingers to shrink my timeline a bit, and we're going to go to 0 seconds.
It's so easy to have the playhead move up to the other layer, and then you are just
yes,
not doing the right thing.
It's like navigating the timeline is surprisingly frustrating.
Yeah, you almost need an iPad that's like twice as big.
Yes. Oh my gosh. I've heard, I follow Mac Rumors, the website sometimes.
Yeah.
And there's like speculation about a 17 or 16-inch iPad. And I would, in a heartbeat, get that.
Yeah, same.
That's
same.
the real upgrade that
Same.
I want.
Yeah.
Okay, so we've dragged our playhead over. If you are up on the moon layer, or you've ended up on another layer, you can just pull and drag it down, and then you'll see it at that keyframe icon once you're on the right track. And also, it'll look like you're not quite at the very beginning, but if you see the 0 second thing here, that's where you're supposed to be. You can't go further over it. I don't know why it looks like that, but it does. And so here, rather than adding a keyframe by tapping, we're just going to move our moon to where we want it to be. And so we're going to tap the node to bring up the little rotation button, and then we're going to pull it down to the side of our canvas. And then we're going to zoom out and go to the very end, the 6 second point. Again, it won't look like it's 6 seconds, but It is. And this time we're going to tap the node and rotate it the other direction. And then you can zoom, make sure that all of your timeline is visible on your screen, and press play, and you'll see it rise, and then pause, and then set. And you've done your first animation.
Yay! That was awesome.
Yeah. Okay, so if you guys have any questions, you can pop them in. We'll probably circle back to get the bulk of any questions that we've missed. But let's do our clouds next. So the clouds animation, we're going to draw in our clouds so that they animate horizontally left to right or right to left. Either side works. And so to first draw them, you can, how do you hide all? There's a way that you can hide all of your layers, right? Yes. So you can hide all of your layers if you want to start drawing just on your canvas, but I just like to draw off to the side next to the canvas and then reposition it once I've drawn. So if you want to hide all of your layers, you can tap on a layer and then tap track options and tap hide all, and do that for every single one, I guess. I guess it doesn't do all of them. But like I said, we're just going to draw them off to the side. So we're going to tap the squiggle to go back into drawing mode. And we're going to make sure that we're on our clouds layer. And I'm going to expand my drawing area. And this time I'm going to grab this gray pink color and the smooth old watercolor brush. And we're going to just start drawing in a couple layers of clouds. So I'm trying to position those so that they will just be visible in the window frame. Oh, and another quirk about Procreate Dreams is that the further zoomed out you are when you're drawing, the more blurred your brushstroke edges will be. And so I think Procreate's recommendation is to just always draw as zoomed in as possible. Because like even here, if I zoom way in, now when I draw, I have super crisp edges of my brush stroke, and the things that I drew when I was kind of zoomed out are blurry, but they're clouds, so I think that's okay for this. So I'm going to keep drawing somewhat zoomed out here. I'm just going to draw a third cloud. And I'll add one last one here. Okay, and then I'm going to grab the smudge tool, and with the stubby smudger, I'm going to smudge, increase the brush size a bit, smudge the bottom of the clouds, make it a little softer, and then any like overlapping colors where it got a little darker, just blend that out. And so for these, while I'm doing this smudging, if you're following in Procreate, I know somebody had said that they were going to try to just adapt it to the Procreate Animation Assist. You'll have to do it frame by frame, but you can just use the transform tool to move your object a little bit for each frame to get that motion. If that makes sense. So you'll duplicate the object onto a new frame and use the transform tool to slide it a little bit over or rotate it a little more if it's the moon. All right, so we've got our wispy clouds. And I'm going to want to set this blend mode to overlay, which was Abbie's idea during the practice that we had earlier this week. But blend modes work in a couple different ways in Procreate Dreams. If you adjust the blend mode in your drawing layer, which you can just by tapping on the N. You can also change the opacity here. We're going to slide ours down to about 50%. If you change the blend mode here, it's only changing how that layer interacts with other drawing layers, not how it interacts with other tracks. So clicking add here, and then if I were to move over, it's not really going to change how it the colors blend with the background, but you can adjust. Oh wait, it did. Oh, that's just because I have one track. I'm sorry, that's confusing. So I only have one layer here. If I were to add another layer and set this to add, it's not going to do it the same, is it? I'm making things up now. I'm hallucinating. Never mind. It works the same, I guess. All right. Anyway, we're going to set the blend mode to add to overlay, and maybe we'll change the opacity a bit. That kind of disappeared. Oh, that's really hidden. Maybe I'll do soft light, hard light. Maybe we will do add. Okay. All right, so now I've left drawing mode, and I can resize and reposition my clouds as needed. I am going to make them a little smaller, just so that they top to bottom fit in the frame. And then you're going to choose where you want your clouds to start traveling from. So the first frame, I'm going to have my cloud just partially visible here in the window. And then I've dragged my playhead all the way to the very start, and we're going to keyframe this as well. So I'm going to zoom in a bit by swiping up vertically with 3 fingers, and then tap the playhead and tap move, and then tap move and scale. And that's going to give me my first keyframe here, which is perfect. Now I'm going to zoom out and go to the very end. And again, I'm making sure that my playhead stays at the keyframe track on the clouds layer. And with my playhead at the 6-second point at the very end, I'm going to drag my clouds over. We'll do that. Final placement there. And so now, when we press play, the clouds move left to right, but you might notice they kind of like slowly rev up and then move quickly in the middle and then slowly wind down in the movement pace. And so that is due to easing. And while I really liked that effect for the moon, how it eased in and out, I don't like it for the clouds. I want them to move consistently. So to change that, you're going to press and hold on the keyframe track and then tap Set All Easings and select Linear. And now, when we press play, they all move at the same pace.
Just anywhere. Oh, there. Set All Easings. Linear. Beautiful.
Yeah. All right. So now we have our clouds, we have our moon, we can go on to our stars. So I've dragged my playhead to the beginning of the stars layer, and I'm going to go back into drawing mode, and I'm grabbing the light yellow that we used, and this time I'm going to use the bumpy pencil, and I'm going to drag my timeline down to expand my drawing area. And for this, I'm just going to start drawing a bunch of stars first in the window, and then I'm going to guess about where I want to put them. You can't see, but I'm tapping in the wall area so there's not like a big gap. And then I'm going to tap to draw some stars outside, and I'll draw kind of like so we're going to kind of draw the stars, actually maybe like that big in that general area, because we're going to do another rotation with the stars. And so we're just going to tap and add some clusters. Okay. And then tap done to exit. We're going to tap to change the blend mode here to add. And we're going to set the rotation for this. Because the drawing space is so large for this, the bounding box is a lot bigger, so we don't, do we need to move? No, we're going to move the anchor point. So we're going to do the same thing with the moon, and tap these 3 dots and then tap edit anchor. And we're going to anchor this down to the lower right corner. And then we're going to tap done. And now we can tap the slate icon, make sure that it's at 0 seconds. We're going to tap move and then move and scale. Tap a little node to bring up the rotation. And, oh, we're not going to rotate yet. We're going to leave that as our starting position and then zoom out, drag our playhead all the way across. You can see I've jumped to just the main track, so I'm going to zoom in and drag my playhead down to the keyframe track. And this time we're going to tap the node and add this rotation.
All the way to the end.
Yeah. And the speed of which it moves depends on how much you rotate. So if I were to just rotate a tiny bit, it won't move too fast. It'll be pretty slow. If I rotate all the way to the end, then it's going to be a little bit quicker. So for this one, I also want this to move linear in the easing. So I'm going to tap the keyframe track and then tap set all easings and select linear. And then when we press play, the stars are rotating nice and smooth. Okay, so now we have done our 3 animations that we're drawing in here. There are a couple more animations that we're going to add. We're actually doing really well on time. With the existing layers. So the first one is we're going to make the cat breathe a little bit. And so for this, we're going to have the cat inhale and exhale, and then we're just going to copy that animation. So to make this easier, we're going to slide our content length to the 3-second point, so it will do the full breath in this time, and then we'll just duplicate it once we're done. So we're going to start at the very beginning at 0 seconds, and we're going to add a keyframe right away. So I'm tapping the slate to bring up the action button, tap move, and this time we're going to tap warp. My husband just got home from work. Hang on a second. Hey, honey. I'm live. Can you close the door? Thank you. And so once you've tapped warp, it'll give you this option to adjust the amount of controls. We're going to increase both to 8. And then there's a lot of nodes here to pull from. And so for this cat, we're just going to, wait, before we go any further. So we set this keyframe here at the beginning, and we're going to set the exact same keyframe at the end. So I drag my playhead to the, like the 3-second point, which is going to look like it's a frame behind that 3-second mark. That's where you need to be. And
So by
on the
doing that, we're anchoring, like this is how we want it to be at one stage and at the next stage. So this is like setting a datum, isn't it?
yes, exactly.
Doing the beginning and the end. Okay.
Yes, because once we warp, it's hard to go back to a 0 point at the beginning. And so this way we're only going to adjust for the inhale, and we're setting the lowest exhale point. So we're tapping the keyframe at the end of the track as well. And with those 2 keyframes set, we can choose where we want the peak of the inhale to be. And so this can be kind of in the middle. It doesn't have to be exact. So I'm just going to do like, I don't know, somewhere between half and 2/3 of the way across. And at this point, we're going to adjust the warp. So I'm going to zoom in, and the key here with these nodes when pulling them is I'm going to try to just move the body and not the ears, which is kind of...
Yeah, it's difficult.
Yeah. And you can see how it looks by dragging your playhead back and forth. I think that looks pretty good. When I zoom out, is it visible? Yeah. That's a big sigh. Okay. So Sheila asked, how did you change the warp nodes? So when, it's tricky because it does like disappear, but if you tap on the object, you should be able to grab the nodes or just grab the object itself and pull. If you move it and it disappears for some reason, just make sure that you're on the keyframe track when you're making those adjustments, and then tap and it should reappear. Okay, so now we're just going to duplicate this, and if it's 3 seconds, it should plop right in, right next to it. And now the full thing looks like that. So then for our last animation, oh, how did you change the number of warp nodes available? That, let's see, I think I have to, I'll show you on this layer. When you first go into move and warp to add the keyframe, it pops right up, and you just slide it over to increase the number of controls. Also, Lenka, thank you for joining us. No worries about being late. You can, if you don't want to watch like real time and you just want to start from the beginning, you can just drag your YouTube slider to the beginning and catch up that way. Otherwise, it'll be available right afterward for watching. Okay, so the last thing we're going to animate is the moonlight, and that we are going to have fade in and out so that it's strongest when the moon has risen, and then most transparent when before it's risen and after it's set. So to do that, we're going to drag our playhead on the moonlight layer to the 2-second mark, which is also the point that we set our moon rising. And we're going to tap the slate, and then tap filter, and then tap opacity. And there's a ton of stuff in here. I'll go back in a moment. We want this to be at full opacity at the 2-second point, so we're just going to leave that keyframe exactly as is. I'll show you the other options there. So these are all other things that you can set as animation. So definitely explore the different effects. I think that's really fun. Okay, so then I'm also going to drag my playhead over at 4 seconds, and we're going to do the same thing, set one more keyframe at 100% opacity. And then we're going to go back.
Hang on. Is it on the edit? No.
It's under filter.
Oh, sorry. Opacity.
And yes, Alenka, the replay will be fully accessible. It'll just live on my YouTube channel. Okay, so then if we go to the 0 second mark, so we've set our 100% opacity keyframes between 2 seconds and 4 seconds. At 0 seconds, we're going to drag our playhead, tap the keyframe, and set the opacity. I'm not going to set it to 0. I think do like 30%. And then it will gradually increase. And then we're going to go to the 6 second point and make sure that the playhead is on that keyframe track. And we're going to decrease the opacity down to 30%. And now when we press play, there's a lot going on. The moonlight increases, the cat's breathing, the clouds are moving, the stars are moving, the sun's rising, or the moon is rising and setting. And that's it. That's the project.
Yay!
I did want to show you quick the record function. So this circle icon next to the play button, that allows you, if you're doing movement animation, to move it in real time. So let me show you what that might look like. We'll move the cat. I think that's a good example. So if we were to record what this looks like, we're going to tap that, and it says ready here in the corner. And then I can just drag the I can just drag the object, and it's going to record all of those keyframes of how I moved it. And we just have a little floating cat. And so rather than just keyframing the clouds moving, you could do it that way. I just like the precision of keyframing it. And so, Abbie, can we see yours? Because you've been working for a different scene.
Yes, you can.
I think this is the most adorable.
Hang on.
Oh, to do full screen, tap 4 fingers on the screen, and it'll make it full size.
Ooh. There he is.
He's so cute. Those are big breaths. He's dreaming.
I was doing the warp. I thought, this guy is bloated, man.
Yeah, I love your shooting star too. Oh,
yeah, thanks, so Addie. You're really good at teaching this, because, man, I was confused. When I first opened Procreate Dreams, I was like, everything is hidden. Everything is a secret. I don't know what's going on. Everything is confusing the hell out of me. This is so hard.
Yes, it still confuses me.
But the keyframes feature is so powerful. You can make all sorts of things. You can make, like, I don't know, just by moving little things and importing layers from Procreate that you can all animate separately. You could do so much good stuff. I think that there's a lot of potential here.
Yes, I agree.
Yeah. Especially, I mean, imagine like lettering that you could have breathing or like bubble letters that are bloating and getting smaller, or I don't know, just like there's so much potential.
Yes. The warp functionality is so cool. I hope that they add liquify as an animation thing too. I think that could be really neat.
That would be very good.
I think a caveat with the warp is that you can't warp or skew or distort a drawing that has multiple layers. And so because this has warp applied, I can't add layers. It has to be fully flattened.
Oh, okay.
And so I wanted to, because that's something that I've had to Google and been like, how do I warp? Like, warp's not working. Um, but you also can't flatten or merge drawing layers. And so that's something that you want to do in
Yeah.
Procreate before you
Yeah.
import it.
I,
Or,
th- I think that using them side by side as like co apps, like,
yes.
to inform each other is really going to be really helpful. Because also, the capability of Procreate's little animation thing in the app is really limited to whether you can do that frame by frame animation. And this just takes that a little bit further so that you don't have to redraw every single frame or manipulate every frame. And I really like the transition thing from like, well, I've put this here and then I want it to end up there, and then it goes there without you having to do every step in between. It's really
Exactly.
helpful. Yeah.
Yeah, because you can make adjustments without putting in a ton of
Yeah.
hours drawing those
Yeah.
adjustments individually.
Yeah.
It's a great way to test out your ideas.
Yeah. There is an app that I used to use like ages ago, years ago, called Sketchbook Motion, which had a similar suite of things that you could do, but it was so rudimentary. And the thing that you could, the video you could export was minute. It was like 1,000 pixels by 1,000 pixels limit.
Oh.
And this means that you can make all sorts of content for all sorts of things. You could make like nice videos for some upcoming event, or you could make a little promotional thing with the letters moving. This is really, really good and really helpful.
Yeah, totally agree. I just tried to find the Sketchbook Motion app and I don't know if it's still
No, I think they've canned it. I think
okay.
it's dead.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it doesn't look like
it
it's
was
available.
it was an Autodesk app.
Okay. Yeah.
And I think it's absolutely died.
Oh, the app graveyard. I
Yeah.
did, because we ended sooner than I expected, I have some resources linked in the description. If you are curious about like how to start animating frame by frame, I have Animation for Everyone by Alex Grigg. That's his YouTube channel. He has a lot of videos on how to think about your animation, ways to practice the 12 principles of animation, and
The
he just
12
makes it
principles of animation.
yes, I can't remember all of them off the top of my head, but it's things like squash and stretch, exaggeration. I don't know. There's 12 of them. And it's just his approach, I think, is super accessible. So that's something that I found really helpful. I also
Awesome.
linked some short animation and GIF inspiration, because I find as I'm thinking about my projects to do in Procreate Dreams, I have to think about it a little differently. So it's like, what can I do to add motion? What's going to tell more of a story in the scene? Like, what vibe am I going for? And so I've linked, actually, here, let me pull it up on screen. Some of my favorite GIF makers and short animation makers. Let's see.
I like Sheila's comment that her stars look like nuclear snow.
Oh my. Okay, so this, let's see, let's find some of my favorite GIFs. This is Louis Zong, and I think in terms of like the storytelling, I just adore like this little ghost here.
I love the chicken picking the onion.
Yes, he's so mad. Let's see if these ones. I love these two. And just like, even just using aspects of this as inspiration, like how this feather thing moves, I think is a really good way to pull from other sources. Oh my gosh, a little bird. I adore it. And so I've linked also my like two favorite animated shorts that I've ever seen. Um, Changeover and Kitbull. Watch those if you want. Those are like way beyond anything that I could ever dream of making. But then also I included my Pinterest board, which I have a lot of like motion graphic or like small animations, and a couple other artists. And also the Procreate Dreams handbook. If you ever have questions, you can search it, and that's always a great resource.
Really helpful. Yeah.
Yeah.
I really love that Procreate provides so much material for answering questions, and like there's in the user interface there are things that are confusing, and they just lay it out so well. It's really good.
Yes, they do. And I love that you can search it. It also pops up when you just Google questions. It'll like pull the exact article.
Yeah.
I'm scanning through to see if I think either wonderful, helpful people in chat have answered questions, or we were able to snag everything. But as always, you can comment, especially if you're watching this later, any questions that you have. Oh, I have Sheila saying really cool. Okay, thanks. And I think that's it.
Yeah. Thank you everyone for joining us, and thank you Addie for teaching me how to use Procreate Dreams, because I honestly, it was so intimidating to me at first. It was just like, I don't know, I'm old and I'm getting a little bit confused with all these changing technology things, and it was so nice for you to just explain it in a really kind way, and I really loved that. Thank you.
That's so nice of you. Well, I'm really glad that we could do this again. It's crazy that it's been 2 years.
I know.
Thank you so much for sharing your time with us. And your beautiful brushes. They are available in the description below. Definitely check those out. The artwork that you did for that brush pack is still some of my very favorite ever. Like the fox. It just lives in my head. And thank you everybody for joining us.
Thank you.
I hope we'll see you all again soon.
Yeah.
Bye.
Bye everyone.